Hi, I'm Taylie, and I'm going to be talking about the negative effects of social media. Imagine waking up one day to your phone dinging to realize that you have allowed yourself to let the numbers on a screen dictate how you view yourself. With being a college student myself, I know how much social media can affect someone, especially when we implicate it into our everyday life. Social media is something that almost every person uses, and this may be focusing on just college students, but it can still have the same effects on any other person as well. For example, imagine you're a parent. You may experience this yourself, but you also might have kids who are entering college or very close to college. Social media has been seen to negatively affect college students through mental health, distractions, and misinformation. Through different surveys and studies made by other college students around the world, we will see how college students are struggling with social media and the negative effects which consist of mental health, distractions, and misinformation. The first negative is how it can affect your mental health. Students tend to be stuck in a constant cycle of looking for validation and approval from social media. Think of all the times you check your Instagram account looking at how many likes you got on your post or how many people commented. We tend to stalk other people's accounts to compare to see who is more liked or popular. It is a constant thing, and when being in college, we already have the stress and anxiety of comparing ourselves because of how smart we are, or who did better on a test. The last thing we need is now to compare on social media as well. A study was done in China at a university called Kaifeng University, which surveyed 1,252 students, and in that survey it was found that students felt, start quote, appearance perfectionism playing a mediating role between social networking site use and restricted eating among college students, end quote. This shows that students felt they needed to be so perfect and look like others that they saw on social media, which then resulted in an eating disorder. This is a huge effect on mental health, and it has been a huge issue with creating eating disorders. When having an eating disorder, it affects your brain in ways people may not even realize and can cause major issues with being successful in college. Coming from personal experience, it is not always easy to get out of that head state once you get there. Knowing that social media is creating that these should be enough alone for it to be banned. But if it isn't enough, we will now move on to the next reason. The next negative is how big of a distraction social media can be, especially to college students. Most of our work is online, whether that be on a computer or an iPad, making it very easy to go on social media instead of going on our school accounts to do our work. Most of our school apps can even be downloaded on our phones these days, making it be just a click away to get on social media instead of our school apps. For me personally, I know that I will go on Canvas, but instead end up on Snapchat. This happens to many students as they get easily distracted by the addiction of social media. Students at BYU focused on the benefits and distractions of social media, and in that finding, that survey 447 undergraduate students, and within it, that it was, start quote, revealed that these students accessed their social media accounts on an average of 32 times a day, yet a majority of them did not consider social media important to their formal education, and many found it to be distracting, end quote. That goes to show that when us students actually think about our use of social media, we tend to actually realize that it is distracting, but we don't always want to think about that since it is engraved into our daily routines. Think about all the time you spend scrolling and switching from platform to platform when in reality you need to be doing homework. We already tend to procrastinate assignments, but then we get stuck in the cycle of scrolling and tell ourselves only 10 more minutes, which then turns into many hours. We then rush homework assignments, making them not be our best work, and instead just trying to get it done in time since we decided to go on social media instead. We will now move on to the last effect. On the last effect being misinformation. There's many false ads or edited photos on social media which can be then falsely inform people, but college students seem to be affected by it the most since we tend to believe what we see. We also tend to not be very informed about different ads that we see on social media, making it easy for us to be misinformed on these topics. It can be a huge issue, especially with voting around the corner. There are so many ads and campaigns, which is hard for students who may not know much about politics to know if it is true or not. Students tend to agree most with what they see on social media. So when falsely advertising different topics like politics, it affects more people around us of students are uneducated. A study was done at University of San Francisco that consisted of an online survey was conducted among 2,105 students, which ranged from 18 to 19-year-olds. It was found, start quote, students who use social media as a source for information were more likely to believe false health information, end quote. Not everyone knows how to find reliable information, so when something pops up on social media that looks believable and relevant, they tend to believe it. During the time of COVID-19, social media was majorly used since we couldn't go out into the world, and college students having to be online with school had more time on their hands to be using social media, which can be a dangerous thing since there's so much misinformation on there, as well as edited photos, meaning that they were easily influenced with what they saw online. Moving on. There are so many reasons why social media is a negative impact, but throughout the findings on how mental health, distraction, and misinformation affects college students, it helps to prove why social media should not be allowed. There's many different surveys done at different universities to help prove why it is constantly affecting college students in ways they should not be wanting in our everyday lives. Since many of us are addicted to social media, it will most likely never be removed from our lives on our own, which is why it needs to be banned across the country at universities. When the decision is left up to college students, they tend to choose whatever they are more interested in instead of what is actually going to help them in the long run. So instead of continuing to keep the scrolling of social media, we need to start looking at the real causes of how it is starting to affect our studies at universities, and remember why we really are at college, not to be scrolling on social media and comparing ourselves, but to be doing studies.